it's April Garwood from Banana Moon Studio. Today I am going to be working on a video to show you how to do the heel turn of a hand knit sock. I'm going to be working in a yarn from Ancient Arts Yarn called Revival. It's a good environmentally friendly sock yarn, and I am using a pattern that is free on my website called Catoosa Socks. Those are the socks that I'll be working on in this video. So if you would like to follow along with that specific pattern, you can find it on my website, bananamoonstudio.com. So I'll turn the camera around and show you how to do the heel turn of your sock. Let's learn how to knit the heel turn of a sock. We've finished the heel flap, and so now we start by knitting across some of the stitches of the heel flap. The pattern that you're using should tell you how many stitches to knit at this point. It's usually going to be about 2/3 of the way across the heel flap stitches. Always snug up that first stitch on a new needle just to help make sure that you're not going to have a big space between where your needles change. So once I've knit the number of stitches specified by the pattern, I'm going to work a decrease. So I'll slip 2 stitches and then knit them together through the back loop. We call that a slip slip knit. And then I'm going to turn my work without working the rest of the stitches along the heel flap. The second row of the heel turn begins by slipping the first stitch, and then I'm going to purl across. Again, the pattern will give the number of stitches to purl here, but it's usually going to be about half the number of the stitches that you knit in the first row. Again, as you change needles, snug this first stitch up so you don't get a big space. Once you have purled the number of stitches specified by the pattern, you will purl 2 stitches together, so you're working a decrease, and then you will turn your work without working the rest of the stitches of the heel flap. The next row begins by slipping the first stitch, and then you are going to knit across until you get to the spot where you turned last time. Or I should say, until you get to 1 stitch before the spot where you turned last time. Here in just a minute, you're going to see that there's kind of a gap between two of the stitches. That's the spot where I turned last time. So there's that gap. I'm going to slip the last stitch before the gap and the stitch after the gap, and then knit those together through the back loop. So I slip, slip, knit the two stitches on either side of the gap, and then I turn. And I will slip the first stitch of this row and then purl across until I have one stitch left before the gap. You may hear some thunder and rain in the background. Just a thunderstorm going on here. Okay, so the gap's coming up. Oop. Fell apart there for a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to purl two together, the two stitches on either side of that space, and then turn my work. And the next row again begins by slipping, just a minute, sorry about that, begins by slipping the first stitch and knitting across until I have one stitch left before the gap. And now I slip this stitch knitwise and the next stitch knitwise and knit them together through the back loop. So what is happening here is that you started by making a short row in the middle of the stitches of the heel flap, and you're knitting back and forth across those, and at the end of each of those rows you are decreasing together with the stitches that you left on the side. So it's forming this little cup that's going to fit around the bottom of your heel, and that's what we call the heel turn. So you will continue repeating these two rows over and over again, that you'll slip the first stitch of each row, and then you will either knit or purl across, whether you're on a right side or a wrong side row, and then you will decrease together the two stitches on either side of that gap. So as I said, you'll be repeating these two rows over and over again. So I'm gonna kind of stop the video here for a bit and come back to it when I can show you my progress. Welcome back. So here I have the heel turn nearly complete. I have one stitch left on the outsides of my two gaps, so I'm nearly finished. I'm going to go ahead and slip the first stitch. We're still doing the same thing we were, and I'll knit across, This is the next to last row of the heel turn. And when I come to the stitch before the gap, almost there. Okay, so now I will slip and slip again. Those are both slip knitwise. And then I will knit them together through the back loop and turn my work. And now here, this is the last row of the heel turn. You can see that I've moved all my stitches onto one needle. You can do that at whatever point in the heel turn it feels like you have few enough. I slip the first stitch and then I will purl across. And when I come to the last two stitches, I will purl those together. And at this point now, I have worked all of the heel stitches. That was the last row of my heel turn, and now it is complete. So the next step in knitting the sock is the gusset. So the next video that I have will be instructions on how to make the gusset, and as soon as that's available I'll link it here. But so usually what happens when you finish your heel turn is you should have about 2 more stitches than the number that you purled across in the second row. So I have 14 stitches here on my complete heel turn. In my second row, I purled across 12 stitches. Well, that completes this instruction. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment, all those good things. And find the pattern for these socks on my website. My website is bananamoonstudio.com, and the pattern is called Catoosa Socks. I hope you all have a lovely day.